I'm actually kind of surprised that a lot of you guys, you really like the longer series. I've been hearing lots of good things about the long series when we do 3, 4, 5-part episodes about one opening, because we really can cover it a lot in detail. So that's what I want to do again. So I'm really happy to announce we will be doing a 6, 7, 8, who knows, part series on the Semi-Slav. So this will be the complete Semi-Slav. And today we'll just sort of introduce the Semi-Slav in general, and we'll talk about the classical Meran lines, the lines where on the 8th move you play a6 as black. And so sort of the way it's going to happen is the Meran is going to be split into 2 at least, and okay, we're going to look at one of the lines today, one of the lines next week, and we're going to talk about anti-Merans. We're going to talk about, you know, what happens when they bring their bishop out, and the Botvinnik and the Moscow. We're going to try to cover it all over the next couple weeks here, so I hope you like the Semi-Slav, because that's what we're doing for the rest of the year. Okay, and so this is the position, and I do kind of want to talk about certain move orders, and we'll figure out how we got here, because there's a couple things right off the bat that we should know. Okay, so it's in d4, d5, and c4. And here already we know we're going to set up the triangle formation. So different people like to start with different moves here. We're going to kind of stick with the classical Slav move. One reason people don't like to do this, and they'd rather play pawn to e6 first, is because they don't like the exchange Slav. So after this, some people don't want us to take here and play this because white gets a slight edge, and some people don't want to play it. So that's why some people start with e6. However, if you play this way, you do have to be ready for the Catalan. So if you want to play this way, then you should know that theory if this is how you choose to play. Okay, and then from this position, we again see that, okay, in general, e3 is a move, but let's look at the different knight developing moves that white can play. Knight f3 is actually the most popular move here. If they play knight to c3, there's a couple different things that you can actually do here as black. If you just want to play the Semi-Slav, then just develop your knight, and if they play here, boom, you got the Semi-Slav. However, there's also some interesting options for black. For example, the win-aware counter Gambit. So this is one option that white is allowed by playing this way, so he should know something about this. It's actually a really interesting opening, so I hope we get to talk about that someday, because it's actually a pretty good surprise weapon for black that I think a lot of players don't know about. Also, we'll just look at this for a second. One extra option you have when they go here is you can play a move like e6, and if you play the note boom, which was my first chess openings explained, you can aim for this. And also, you can also just go into the Semi-Slav. Also, when you play this way, if they play here, you can also go into a stonewall formation if you want. So there's some different options depending on how white chooses to play. Another thing too is if you play here, you're hoping that they play knight f3 and you can play the note boom. Well, you also have to be wary of the Marshall Gambit here, so that you can get this wild, crazy Gambit, where after this check, you can either block like Carlsen in the World Championship, or you can go in for this Gambit. And okay, I think at the amateur level, it's actually really hard to deal with white's initiative here. So white's given up a pawn, so you would have to know this and be really careful as black if that's how you wanted to play. So there's a couple different move order things just right off the bat. We're going to stick with the pure Slav move order here, and we'll follow the main move. And okay, you could play e6 here or knight f6. This is the more popular way. And now here we have it, the Semi-Slav. And why I'm pretty excited about the opening, I think the Semi-Slav is actually what chess is all about. It has everything. You can get very dynamic tactical positions, and it can also be a superpositional opening. So it actually has sort of everything all at once, and it requires you, well, to know a lot of theory, which is, okay, a huge part of chess, and it requires you to be really good at positional chess and have a large tactical ability. So this can lead to some of the most interesting and complicated positions in all of chess, which is why we're going to go kind of slow and take it week by week and try to discuss some of these things. And we'll see. So today we're going to look at the move e3. And one of the reasons people play here is This pawn on c6, while it does block in the knight, and that usually is a great square for a knight, it does have the ability that if you ever take here, it supports the move b5. So in a lot of lines, you'll grab this pawn and try to keep it. So for that reason, white will often play the move e3, so that now if you take it, I can just take it back with my bishop. We will be looking later at what is probably the most natural move. So in the course of this series, we're going to talk about bishop to g5. You get your bishop outside of the pawn chain, and then next move you can play e3. And we'll be going over some really complicated stuff, like what if we try to grab the pawn and we allow this. This is the Botvinnik system, so we will take a look at this coming up in the future. And there's also some quieter, but there's still a lot of danger and exciting lines in the Moscow/anti-Moscow, which we'll cover towards the end. But today, let's focus on the move e3. Now, black just plays the most logical developing move. And here there's actually two moves that we're going to look at in this series. For the first 2 days, we're going to be looking at bishop to d3, which seems like just the most logical, natural developing move. And then also coming up, we'll look at queen to c2. Now, the reason some people would try to avoid this, even though it looks like the most popular move, is black's plan is as follows. I want to take, and then I want to expand on the queen side. And over the next few moves, I'm going to try to play moves like a6, bishop b7, and c5. If I play c5 and I get all these moves in, then usually black has a very comfortable position, and my bishop suddenly has a great diagonal. So some people, they wait. They want to play queen to c2, very good move, because now we're not really tempted to take here, and black has to find another move. So, okay, you have to try to do something else. And we'll have a look at that. But we're going to look at the Meran. So they play bishop d3, and after we take, we play b5. Now here, there's three logical bishop moves that actually make sense. Bishop f1 doesn't make a lot of sense because then you can't castle. But the most common move is what we're going to come back to, bishop to d3. But I figured in this introductory video, we should talk about some of the other moves, because there's actually, well, this is, I think this is the only move I've ever faced, but there's actually some very interesting options. Bishop e2 and bishop b3 are both actually really interesting. So we'll have a look first at bishop to e2, which can be kind of a positional line. And with all moves in chess, we want to think about the differences here. There's things that are good and bad about the bishop being on e2 rather than d3. d3 is obviously like the most active diagonal. You're looking at the h-pawn. So you can see that's a very good reason to put your bishop on d3. But with this line, you're trying to have your queen connected to your d-pawn, which will be important in some variations we'll see. Also in some lines, it's easier to play the move a4 if black tries to play a quick a6 and c5. And so let's figure that out. So the main move here is bishop to b7. And as a general rule, if in this position what's the easiest way to remember this as black? If the bishop stays on this diagonal, its normal diagonal, then bishop to b7 is a good move. That can help you remind it. And then if they go here, you have to learn something a little bit different. Because if you just now try to routinely play, as we're going to kind of see today, we're going to see lines where you play a6 before the bishop goes to b7, and then you just want to play c5. This actually can lead to a problem for black. And this is the general rule for white in these positions. If, because black always has to decide, do I develop my bishop first or do I move my pawn first? And in general, if they move their pawn first, you want to try to exploit the slow play, okay, you're moving a pawn again, by playing the move e4. So in general, that's how you should respond. And in general, if they, instead of playing a6, they develop their bishop, then usually the right move is castling. Because if here, e4, and if you just try to play the move c5, this actually isn't a very good move. Because now white can play this move e5. You have a question? Which side? So black determined that it would be a semi-Slav in this position when he played the move e6. What's that? It's good for both sides. It's like every chess opening. So probably white is a little bit better in every line because that's every chess opening. But no, it's playable for both sides. And so lots of top players have played both sides of this. And a lot of it just comes down to what you prefer. And one reason a lot of people like to play it as black is because it gives you a lot of chances to win. So, you want to play this way as black, especially when you're good and you're playing other good people, because you have chances to win. So even if you're playing a lower rated player, you have chances to win when you play the Semi-Slav. So that's part of the appeal. So returning to the bishop e2 line, let's look at the too casual move here, c5. And now e5. And this is where things usually get pretty crazy in these types of lines. It's not really easy to move our knight, because if we go here, okay, they'll take it, and then we got to worry about e6. We don't want to go back. So we take here on d4. Now, when there's a bishop here, then normally they take on f6, and we take on c3, and that's sort of a deal. But in this line, we can now take with our queen. So this was the whole point of playing bishop to e2. We didn't block in the queen's connection from the d-pawn. So here we can just take it. And now, okay, if you have to go back, then, okay, this has been a success in the opening for white. And it's true that you can toss this move in. But as another general rule, since white is going to go attack you, you're probably going to castle over here. In general, if the queen gets over here, it's really good for white. Conversely, in most positions, when you get your queen out here and their queen isn't out here, then it's good for black because both sides actually get a lot of chances to attack in this line, because you're going to have this awesome bishop here. So both sides want to get their queen on the king side. It's just in most lines, it doesn't happen, although here it does if they allow you to play this way. So that's why this can actually sort of backfire on people. So it's also a good reason to play it as white, because you want to play it as white. There's also a lot of like tricky stuff. Bishop e2, also this move earlier. Okay, and yeah, so we'll talk about that too. So instead, okay, they should play bishop to b7. And then they should castle, which follows just the general rule. When they develop the bishop, you castle. If instead here, I want to show this only because there's a very humorous line. The four queens variation. Okay, so we attack here and they attack our knight. So yeah, it's kind of a hint. Maybe we can figure out how we're going to get this. And in this position, you should probably take with the knight. But yeah, there's this game. Yeah, so we all made queens. We took each other's knights and then we all made queens. So probably black shouldn't play this way because it's better for white, because white's going to castle kingside and be a lot safer than the black king. But with so many queens on the board, there's lots of room to outplay people, and it's easy to get confused. And actually, the highest rated game in this position comes from Shimonov, who's local, goes to Webster. So yeah, local guy is the highest rated guy that played this opening as black. It was an interesting game too, but we won't be focusing too much on that. Instead, let's look at what happens when white castles. Okay. Now we can play a6, and our next move is c5. So, and you'll see this is the typical point for white. He played e3 and developed his bishop, and then only later plays e4, e5. And again, we'll get a position like this where we don't really want to take here because the queen can still take, and then it's hard for our knight to go forward. Yeah, so they play knight d5. Mm-hmm. So what's that? Yeah, so if they take right away, we just take back with our bishop. We don't have to compromise our pawn structure. Let's see, so this position here, okay, a4 is not the only move, but let's just take a look at this. This is sort of the main starting position, so we'll just discuss what both sides should be thinking about in a position like this. This is the most typical position you get in the bishop e2 line. The big thing for white here is, okay, I got big control over the d6 square. So at some point, I would love to drop my bishop in. If you'd let me, I would really love to trade these bishops. Like this would be like super dream world, and you give me access to d6. So it's in black's best interest in these lines not to trade the dark squared bishops. This is your really important bishop in these lines. Though it is kind of funny because in a lot of lines, black actually wants to trade lots of pieces. Because if you enter an endgame, this actually might be a weakness. So you're going to try to prove as black that the center is a liability, and white's going to try to show that he can use the center to get some of his knights to these really good squares. You can imagine if I get lots of knights jumping in on d6, or if you're playing bug house, you just say sack your queen, give me a knight, and then you crush your opponent. But in chess, yeah, so this actually is a common maneuver in this type of position. All the knights go here, your bishop can go to f3. That's something that you might want to look for. So he does have the c4 square, and he has the d6 square. That's kind of what he's playing for. And as black, you're going to try to show that the center is a liability. The most common move is queen to c7. So sometimes maybe we can take, and then the e-pawn is a little bit weaker here. And just to show, okay, we'll stop a bit about here. h6, just the idea is now I can play bishop e7 and you can't try to trade the bishops. So this would be the typical position that you're trying to get with both sides here. And it's very dynamic and it's unbalanced. And okay, so there's still a lot of play here. This is a very interesting line that people should probably look at. They should probably look at all the alternatives to the main line because they're pretty interesting as well. Okay, the audience has never seen this move. And okay, this is actually a very aggressive move. And it reminds me kind of the Queen's Gambit accepted. You can imagine, and we were looking at that very briefly before, this is the kind of pawn structure you can get in the Queen's Gambit accepted. And in a lot of those lines, the bishop stays here on this diagonal where it has lots of pressure and has the possibility of sacrificing on e6. And these lines can get very sharp. Especially, okay, we'll just look at the best move according to theory here, which is b4. And we'll see, so the knight normally goes to e2, and we'll come right back to this. But the main idea for white here is to put his knight on f4 and g5. And then you have lots of sacrificing. You can play knight takes f7, and if the king takes, knight takes e6, and you can notice some bad things might happen. So black does have to be really careful. There's lots of games where white just wins immediately. He puts his knights on their best squares and sacks everything, and it's over.
Black doesn't castle fast, right?
Yeah, yes, if black doesn't castle fast, that can be a problem. But as a general rule too, you want to make sure whenever they have a knight here on f4, this is the big thing you need to know in this line, is you want to have a bishop here on d6. Because then if they bring their other knight in, you can get rid of this guy. And then the sacrifices usually don't work in those positions. I do want to mention one move that surprisingly some top people have played, so maybe it's okay. But here, black has a very nice move. Bishop a6, just restricting castling. So that's one of the downsides of having your bishop on an unnatural diagonal and doesn't normally go here. So you want a lot of attacking chances, which is also why it makes sense to normally bring your knight to e2, because then you can go to f4 and you have lots of potential to attack. Okay, so instead, we can get a position like this. This is the typical line. And now that you're threatening maybe to take some stuff, we want to be able to get rid of this guy. So if you achieve this, you get c5 in. These positions should be fine for black. So this is what you can kind of expect in a variation like this. So this would be a typical position. And white didn't get to sacrifice, so black is doing just fine here. Though it's still an interesting position. This is the kind of thing you might expect in the bishop b3 line. Okay, but we come now, let's just go back to this position. So after we take and play b5, what happens if white just plays the most natural move? Bishop to d3. And the old way of playing, the classical way, is the move a6. And this is where we're going to start. I do kind of want to spend some time talking about this move before we move on to what is often considered the modern main line. Nowadays, people will develop their pieces before they play a6. And there's some differences that we're going to see. By Larson? Yeah. I can believe it. It seems like something he would do. You fact check that at home. Did Larson, first one to do this? Comment below. Though also, there's something to be said about this move, which has gained popularity after the game between Ronian and Anand from 2013. And I think Jen Shahadi did a video on that like forever ago, like when it happened for us. So that's on our channel somewhere. But if you guys want to see that line, let me know. I think b4 is a line. Let me know. If there's something you guys want to see, this is a complete series. We'll talk about whatever you want. This can last forever. But today we're just going to look at the move a6. So come back next week if you want to see bishop to b7. And the point is, I protect my stuff, and now I play c5. So since we've talked about the general rule, I guess I'll come to this side of the room. They moved their pawn here instead of playing bishop to b7. So what move should white play? So in general, so he can either castle or play a move like e4. And black played a very slow move. He just moved another pawn, and black's next move is to play c5. So which would punish a slow move more, castling or e4? And the answer from this side of the room was e4. Now, yeah, e4 exclam, great move. Castling is a bit slow. So we'll see if black just gets to play all the moves he wants to play, which is c5 and bishop b7, then he's doing just fine. So we'll look at one game very briefly here. Nick Sevic versus Georgiev from Tavat 2011. And we'll only show that, okay, in a position like this, black can very comfortably get all of his pieces out. And this also is a great move. Castling has been played, like half the people castle here, half the people play queen d5. And the higher rated half of people play queen d5 in this position, which goes back to kind of what I was saying. Black, just like how white wanted to in the other line, wants to get his queen over there because that's how I checkmate you. That's where your king is. And that can cause you a lot more problems and make it harder for you to attack me. So yeah, queen d5 was a very nice move. The queen is just going to go over to h5. And so that's kind of what happened. And they traded stuff, and you can just kind of tell from a position like this that black doesn't have any problems. So while it's not, a horrible thing to castle or whatever, it just doesn't pose enough problems to black to be worthy of, real theoretical contention for an advantage as white. Okay, so instead of castling, e4 is the most common move in this position. Okay, now c5. And as we saw sort of in the other variation, e5. Yeah, d5, this is the Reynolds attack. So we will be talking about this. Normally it occurs more often in the bishop b7 lines. So imagine white is, I played bishop b7 and white castled. So this is more commonly played there. And it almost always transposes. There's not a whole lot of independent significance. So we're going to study this, I guess 2 weeks from now. That'll be, we'll study this in the bishop b7 Meran. I thought about including some of the differences, but we're going to focus on this line, which is, an independent try for white to try to, I don't want to play the Reynolds attack because you played this way. This is the line that I can play to try to cause you some difficulties. And now again, it's kind of hard to move your knight to any useful place. Like if here, again, you can take it, and then I got to worry about e6. So black takes on d4. And so yeah, we see this as a common thing. You're attacking my knight, I'm attacking your knight. And now, this is the Bloomfeld variation. I'm going to lose my knight, so I sacrifice it anyway. And then if you take my knight, which is the main move, you take my knight. So we'll come back to this. This is actually a major parting of the ways, though. There's actually 3 moves here. And I think I faced them all. I guess I've played this a lot. So this is a move. What are the other 2 moves? Yeah, knight e5. And do you know the third move?
I know those two.
Those 2, right? Because yeah, there's a. But yeah, so I thought there was only 2 moves here when I was playing this, and I was playing a 2300, and he really surprised me. He went here, knight to g4. Now, you don't want to play this at the top level, I guess, because white can play 20 more moves of theory and get a slightly better endgame. So that's why people at the top level don't play this. However, I was quite surprised by this, and I played the 3rd most popular move here, which was here, which is actually interesting, and it should be an okay move. But it's funny the way I lost too. So the opening was, okay, I didn't really get a big advantage, but it was some nice fine opening. And then in some position, like it's impossible for you guys to ever imagine the move I played. Like I just played King D1 for like no reason. And I've done that before. Like everybody makes different mistakes. Like some people, it's like, why do you keep putting your pawn on F6 and then your knight never gets to go there and your king's exposed? Some people make that mistake. My mistake that I like to play is King D1. Like don't do that. You got that? Don't just randomly move your king there for no reason. It's never worked out for me, but I keep doing it. Do you think I should stop? Yeah, I think so. No, it was a long game. Yeah, and I just threw the game away like King D1 for no reason. That's just a mistake I like to make, I guess. Okay, and we'll show just out of interest, since this is semi-opening for just black, I would like to show you just how complicated it can get, so we'll just kind of admire the complications. The main move here is actually Queen A4, creating a pin on the A file. And then after here, I showed like the following lines to somebody, like the highest rated guy that was at the club, and he's just like, none of these moves make any sense, and nobody could ever play this. So that's kind of why you would play this surprising move as black. This is a great surprise weapon. Because I think if white knows his stuff and plays this crazy computer line that we're gonna see coming up that people can't understand. Ready for this? Get ready? Yeah, so if they figure out all of this, it's like, all right, white's a little bit better in an endgame. So it's a great surprise weapon. I think the computer even says it's like equal, but okay, I mean, white has more pawns. So you can get this type of position that's really crazy. But I think it's actually something people might want to look into, because if they don't find all these moves, then they get into trouble. And that's kind of why you play the Semi-Slav in general anyway. There's some people that they hate playing theory. They're just like, I avoid playing anything that you might ever know. And I think that's more people than people that actually book themselves up. I think everybody's always worried that everybody else is all booked up on every opening ever, but that's very rarely the case. Even grandmasters, you see, yeah, I didn't know this line, and it's like book lines that they should probably know if they're playing these openings. But I think you just want to be the one that's more prepared in these openings, and that's why you'd play something like this, and that can be a great surprise weapon. Also, taking here is a move. And it leads to some other really complicated, crazy lines that we'll breeze through unfairly. So something like this, very complicated stuff. And, maybe white's a little bit better. But yeah.
Very sharp.
Yeah, everything gets very sharp. And so even the main move in this position, let's just go back so we can see this all one more time. So we played A6, and after E4, C5, they play E5. We got nowhere to go, so we have to take here. And so they give up their knight. The main move is taking with the pawn, so this is what we'll actually focus our attention on. Okay, so they gotta take our knight. Pawn takes, yeah. And we're up a pawn as black. That's good. We should stop here for just a minute and kind of take stock, because this is obviously a very sharp dynamic position. We've opened up the G file. We're going to try to use our rook here, which means our king is probably going to stay in the center. Yes?
Are we not taking using the knight?
Yeah, you can. This is like an okay move. I think I just take here check, though. I get my pawn back. It's too safe and secure. Now you got to worry. It's check, and I'm on this guy. Yeah, because I think if you just did something like this, I can take here. Now it's me that's up a pawn. So yeah, you do gotta you have to be willing to play sort of sharp positions in these types of lines. So yeah, okay, before we look at any moves here, okay, we see the rook. It's gonna get some active play. This rook, already pretty good piece, because now sometimes you have to do, if you want to move this guy away, I'm on your A pawn. So already he's got some active play. This bishop, I see a good diagonal for him where he's going to coordinate with the rook. So the bishop on this diagonal is going to be pretty great. The queen often goes to B6. The knight almost always goes to E5. The bishop usually goes to c5. And my feeling of this position is it's a lot easier to play black. I think white is better in this position. I actually really like playing this. This is why I don't play the a6 line, because I don't want to play this as black. I think this is good for white. But it's so easy to play black. You know where all your pieces go, and it's not entirely obvious what white should do. Usually what comes in handy is you got this majority here on the queen side. Obviously, black has his own majority and his own passed pawn, but that's unlikely to be pushed until the end game, and sometimes that's what happens, and you can win end games. So it's, again, the situation where black is actually sort of attacking white, and he doesn't mind if you exchange pieces, because the end game should be fine, because I got this passer here, which makes it kind of pleasant to play as black. Okay, and I just took you now. The most common move might surprise you, because there's these pawns that look like we can just take them. White usually castles. He's down a pawn and he doesn't get his pawn back. Let's look at both of these captures. This one first, because it's easy to refute. Yeah, queen a5 check, and you win the bishop. So, okay, that one's right out. What about this move? Why not get my pawn back? And the problem is, black can actually already get a very scary initiative. Queen b6. And I want to look at a game where white was a little bit too greedy and he got punished. This is the game Igminas Vaznanis from a correspondence game in 2004. So, I don't know, do they even have computers? This was probably a legitimate correspondence where they actually thought about it themselves and didn't have to use a computer. Okay, and in this game, he took with his knight. So now he's up a pawn. But here already, so this is, the point of this is we're going to see the initiative that black can actually get when white plays this way. And all of the moves come very naturally. Bishop b7, I'm on the g-pawn. Very nice diagonal for a bishop. So he castled, defended his pawn. Rook g8. Very easy. Now I'm going to take this. So it provoked the move g3. Okay. Bishop c5 is okay. He played here though. Knight e5, which comes with a threat. So he's able to put his piece where he wants to go with a threat. And here white blunders already by playing the most natural looking move possible. Bishop e2. And this is a mistake. And now the game's over. But can you find it? So here's a real challenge. You might want to pause at home. This is a pretty good challenge. So far today, nobody's been able to solve this. I've showed it to reasonably high rated players. So what's the winning move here? Why bishop c5? Right. Yeah, awesome. Right, you kind of want to play a move like queen c6 because then you might checkmate your opponent with this battery here. But then they play the move f3. So yeah, Claudio's got it exactly right.
I think I've seen it somewhere.
You've seen this? How have you seen this game? This is like two people you've never heard of and I can't pronounce. So he keeps the f pawn in place, and now how do you stop me from going here and in here? Well, he found a way to stop him, but okay, he's lost now. But a4, so that now after queen to c6, we're going to understand this move. He played knight to d6, and be really careful. Don't do this. Be careful. Okay, so you have to take back with the queen, which is fine, because now you're up a piece. And even traded queens. And that's as far as we'll go. So you can see already black won a piece, and then he went on to win without any real trouble here. So yeah, I mean, the initiative comes really, really fast for black. So, okay, this will suit a lot of players that like to play this way. And so we can get an idea of why white should perhaps not be so greedy and just castle. Queen b6, defending both of the pawns. And okay, again, it's easy. I do this. And you know, that's what I do. Queen e2, this is the main move. Attacking this pawn. Can you see? Do I need to like change the board at all? All right, so most people push their pawn because then they don't lose their pawn. Though it is worth mentioning that in the 2008 World Championship, yeah, Anand, he played this against Kramnik twice, and he won both times with black. And I think, did Eric Hansen do that? Who did? Somebody talked about game 5. It was games 3 and 5? You're not sure? Who did it? Go find it. You're on the internet. But yeah, so I think somebody's already covered that, so I didn't want to recover that if it's already been covered.
Did Kramnik take the pawn?
He did. Yeah, he did. And then if I remember right, the first game, game 3, he played here, and then he clearly out-prepared his opponent. Brilliant game. It's really good. Go look that game up. That's your homework. You didn't think you'd get homework from this video. And then in game 5, you know, so and it's pretty suspicious, this move, giving up the pawn like this. So then Kramnik, presumably, he had all of his seconds and all of his people telling him, okay, well, this is bad, so you should play it again. Well, then when they played again, and he had whatever he had prepared, Anand played a different move, like rook g8. And then he was more prepared in this line, too. So he had 2 lines prepared for this, and okay, then Kramnik stopped playing that against him. So yeah, I mean, 2 wins with that, and that's how he became, you know, the world champion again. So, yeah, and somebody asked me today, how do you become a world champion? I said you play the Meran, and in this position, you play bishop to b7. That's how you become the world champion. So, okay, if it's good enough in the world championship, even if it's a little dubious, it's, you know, good enough in the Knights tournament and every action quad. But okay, after b4, I do want to find a game here. This will be our last game here for the night. We'll see this to its completion. This is the game between Hambardzumian and Khismatullin from 2015. Okay, and rook d1 is the most popular move here for white, and then on the next move, bishop to f4. So usually this rook ends up going to d1, but we'll just focus here on this game. So bishop b7, you know, it's a very easy move to play. And white decided in this game not to put the rook on d1, but to put it on c1, and he's keeping this rook here because somebody's got to defend this pawn. Okay, so here actually too, we're starting to coordinate here, you know, our rooks. So we got like the triangle of death going on. So we got that going on as white. So he played bishop c5 just to break this connection so nothing comes down here. And after this, he's going to try to trade off for black's really strong bishop. We reach this position. And he plays f5. He says, I'm not worried if you want to trade with me, because then my queen goes here and I have some threats. And for example, we can make a funny blunder. Whoops. So that's check, so you'd have to play g3. Okay, I'm not really worried if you want to trade with me. So the bishop went to f3. And he connects his rooks. That's where the king normally goes in this line. He goes to e7. And usually you're pretty safe behind all of these pawns. It's not so obvious how white could ever open this up and really attack you. It's mostly black that's attacking in this position. a4. And what's the best move in this position? Also, everybody I've asked today has gotten this one right, so it's always strange which ones are easy and which ones are hard. All right, so if you're just joining us, white just played the move a2 to a4. What's the best move for black? Bishop a6, that looks like a good move. I mean, okay, so I'll have to just move my queen somewhere. And now hopefully this ends up being decent for me, this outside pawn. In the end game, that's kind of what I need as white, is I need this outside guy. And I'm kind of trying to trick you. I asked all these people this because I'm trying to trick people. What's the best move? And the best move, objectively, is to just take the pawn. So perhaps he was worried about a situation like this. And after some trades, you can get a position like this, and so the computer would just take the pawn. But this is kind of scary because you got to worry about all these dark squares, and your dark squared bishop is, you know, a little bit far away. But this should actually be fine for black, so he could take it. In the game, however, he decided to play it safe, and he just brought his rook to c8. And now the blunder of the game here, and then he's gonna, you know, double down on the blunders on his next move. So bishop g3, this was not a very good move. d3. And white took it, which is a mistake. He should probably stay connected to his f2 pawn, which is a big hint as to what the right move is here. So instead he took here. And now it's black to move. Pause your videos at home if you want to try to find this one. What did black play in this position? Okay, you want to take here? You take it back? Yeah. Right. Yeah, very good. Rook g3. The point is, after we take here, we can take on f2. So now all we got to do is get one of our heavy pieces to this file to give checkmate. We're very close. If we could like do this, it'd be checkmate. Conversely, if we brought this guy over here and we did this, that also would be checkmate. So that's what he did in the game. Now here, white triple blundered. Every move has been a blunder. He should have, in fact, continued with a move like a4. The point is, I'm going to go to h6 and checkmate you. But at least in this line, you'd be able to block with your knight. Though you're still in bad trouble. So instead, though, knight to c4, attacking the queen. So rook g6, threatening mate. And white had been banking on this move, queen to d2. He thought that this must save him. Haha, you don't go to h6. But then black played one more move, and white resigned. So this is the last puzzle of the day. So go ahead and pause one more time. Can you find what black played in this position? You just need to find one more move, and you win the game. Yeah, because the problem is we can't play rook h6 because of the queen. The queen is the problem. You get that queen out of there. Yeah. Queen e3. Okay, a very decent idea, but sadly, you're too tricky. Yeah, I have to take this way. Okay. Yeah, I can't take with the knight, obviously, because of the knight. Taking with the knight would be a funny counter blunder. But yeah, I can do this. And so yeah, the thing is, when I take your queen in this line, I'm still on this square. So you're very close, though. You're very close. You want to try again? Can you get it before the master? Yeah, look at that. Queen d4. That's how the game ended. And yeah, so the problem is there's nowhere on this diagonal that's safe for the queen to go that won't involve her getting traded off. What do you want to do? Queen takes on a4? On d4?
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's see. So yeah, I guess I just have to take this. And I'm still threatening mate. Yeah, that's enough. Yeah, you just take care and you're still threatening mate. So that's how the game ended. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think of the Semi-Slav. Let me know if you guys like playing it as white or black in the comments below. Let me know if there's anything else you guys want to see. Hit like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.